So, hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning in to the next episode of In Conversation With. If you are tuning in on Friday night across on the Azure Live twitch.tv, thanks so much for tuning in. It really does mean a lot. Please do take part in the chat below. Don't forget to give the channel a follow. You'll get notified, obviously, next time we go live with more content. Equally, if you're watching this on catch-up across on YouTube, again, thanks so much for tuning in. It really is appreciated. Please do click on like on the video and give the channel a subscribe. It all helps generate some more content for you. So it really is appreciated. Anyway, on to this week's episode. So my next guest, he is a cloud training architect over at Obscurity, and they're based out of Michigan over in the US. He's an Azure MVP, an MCT regional lead. He's also the co-founder of the Midwest Azure and M365 user group. So on that note, I'm so thrilled to welcome my next guest on In Conversation With, Captain Hyperscaler himself. It's Mr. Dwayne Natwick. Hey, Dwayne, how you doing?
Hey, John, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
No, not at all. Thanks so much for obviously giving up some time and coming on and recording an episode with me tonight. So it's obviously great to have you on. You know, I know I've been following you for at least the last 12 months or so and seen some of the fantastic stuff that you've been doing across the community. You know, obviously you're an Azure MVP yourself as well and working in training. So great to have you on. And obviously, I want to touch on some of those areas now with you, if that's all right, Dwayne.
That sounds great.
I mean, before we get stuck in, do you want to give yourself a little bit of an intro? Tell us about a little bit more about where you're working, what you're up to, and what you've got going on at the moment, and we'll delve off into some areas.
Yeah. So from a standpoint of my day job, I'm a cloud training architect lead. I lead the group of trainers here at Obscurity, which is a learning partner in the U.S. I'm based out of Michigan in the U.S., but we have trainers across the U.S. and utilize MCTs across the world actually to deliver trainings. We do trainings for many different Microsoft partners, Microsoft themselves. We host and do live events. We built a live event platform on Teams, our virtual conference manager, that we do live events, not just in tech, but we've done things for like Progressive Insurance, as well as, KPMG and global events that we've done in terms of, as companies have gone more virtual in these events, we've done that as well as delivering, Microsoft training as well as custom training to customers. So it's a lot going on. Like I was telling you as we were prepping, I've been doing a 21,000 person global Microsoft Cert Week event this week, where we've been doing 12 different tracks of getting 20,000 people across the world ready to get certified. So
that's mightily impressive, Dwayne. Like you said, when you mentioned that to me, it's like, yeah, this is no sort of 20-man exercise in a virtual room that you're giving training to. There's some quite significant numbers that you're working with at the moment.
Yes, yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I'm doing one of the tracks. We've got multiple. Most of them are fundamentals based tracks, but we're doing we've got Dynamics, we've got Azure, we've got Microsoft 365, we've got security, compliance, and identity. So all of the certification tracks are covered. So it's been fun.
No, that's awesome. Now, I mean, maybe one of the things I wanted to have a chat to you around was obviously that whole training and that whole training career path, from a technical standpoint and how you got into that. But if we can park that for a minute, I think one of the other main reasons that I thought I'd call you up and get you on the show was really the timing to release this video in line with a fantastic annual event that you organise and you have running, which is, of course, the Azure Back to School event. I don't know if we can kick things off and just talk us through, what the Back to School event is all about, how it came to be, what's involved this year. And I'll flick over to the website in a second and scroll through it just so people can see what it's around. Yeah, if that's all right with you, Dwayne.
Oh, definitely. I appreciate you talking about it and promoting it. It was something that I thought about as I started getting more involved in the community. One of the first things that I got involved in was Gregor Sudi and Richard Hooper's Azure Advent Calendar, now the festive calendar event a couple of years ago, and out of that, then I also got involved in Joe Carlisle and Tom Thornton's Azure Spring Clean. And I
Yeah.
was looking at the timing of the two, and I really enjoyed what they did and how it brought together everybody in the community. And I was like, you know what? There's really nothing in between. That happens in December, and then in February. There's nothing between February and December that that I see as like a community-based event. So I thought of, hey, maybe around September, when at least it's different. I know in different countries, but in the United States, schools go back in session. So
Sure.
I thought of this Azure Back to School event that, hey, we'll spend September teaching, giving teaching with video content or blog posts. And that was really where it came about. And the response was great. I had plenty of participants my first year, which was last year, in providing content. And then as I was thinking about this year, I was trying to again keep up with Gregor and Richard in kind of rethinking a little bit of the direction of it all and how to maybe take it even a step further, and thought of, hey, maybe this year we'll use some people, we'll ask some valued participants and MVPs that do generally gravitate to these types of events to present, and also ask them to maybe bring in and mentor somebody else that isn't as known to the community and help them get their name and their voice out there as well. Yeah. So that was kind of the intent of this year. And I think we've got some great speakers, great list of MVPs, and then as well a lot of additional new blood, so to speak, that people that wanted to participate but didn't know how to really get into it. And that's really what was the idea of how to go about things this year.
And do you know what? It's a really, really fantastic event. And I caught it last year, obviously the first year that you did it. And it was great because it was, so every day you're kind of releasing a different piece of content. Yeah. Whether that be, like you say, a blog article, maybe a YouTube video of some variety. And I mean, I can see you've got them all here on the website now. So, I mean, I guess for anybody to get to it, if they want to browse to this URL, I guess all of those are links there.
It's actually Azure. It's actually a little bit easier to remember than a GitHub IO, but it's azurebackToschool.tech. TEC.
Oh, there we go. So it's there. It's in the image there. So
the URL that redirects to the GitHub site that I launched for this. Yeah.
No, that's cool. Well, I'll stick all the links.
This year we went fully with videos. Last year
right.
I kind of let them do both, but like I said, I wanted to get more voices out there, and more participation in the community with some newer people that maybe others don't know as well, and get their names and voices heard.
No, I mean, that's great. I mean, it's a really good idea, to be honest, Dwayne, because I think, in terms of, I'm just looking down the list now, and there's certainly a lot of names there that I recognise. And like you say, it's great to see so many people coming into the community at the moment. And like you say, they reach out, you'll have a chat with some people, and so much keen enthusiasm, I guess, going on at the moment. And this kind of platform is a great, almost no pressure to a certain extent kind of way of cutting your teeth if you really are new to doing this. And I believe it or not, I consider myself to be still very new to kind of doing this YouTube malarkey. Who'd have thought I'd be doing this a year on it. But it's great fun, I guess, isn't it? And it kind of fosters that community spirit. So that obviously that kicks off on the 1st of September. So when this video goes out, it would have kicked off a couple of days previous. So this is probably the 3rd of September that we're talking now, Dwayne, yeah? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, that's cool. So, I mean, the kind of feedback that you get from that then in terms of community, is it overwhelming? Do you have to turn people away, or are you managing to kind of cater for everybody there? How's that worked out for you at the moment?
Yeah, as you'll see on the schedule, some days I have content doubled up, and that's because I made sure that everybody that submitted something, I did get multiples from some people. I really selected one topic from everybody, but everybody was accepted.
Awesome.
So yeah, I didn't want to turn anybody away. People that want to from this event, the more the merrier. And for me, it's just as long as they get the videos to me up up so that I can get them uploaded onto my YouTube channel, or they use their own YouTube channel and get me a link. All the responsibility is for me is to get it posted on social media that day. And so that's really that's really what I'll be doing. Most of September is, I'll get as much scheduled pre the scheduled date as possible. But if I'm waiting on videos and a little bit, it might adjust a little bit, but that's generally last year went pretty well. Everybody was pretty good. I had a couple people that ran a little bit late, and I had to re-swizzle the schedule a little bit, but it went rather well. This year I have more participants than last year that wanted to do it. I used Sessionize and did a call for speakers last year, for this year. And last year, what I did more so was just more, people responding to me on LinkedIn and Twitter. So I've gotten a little bit more structured in how I went about it this year, and trying to use it as a Sessionize event, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I can see obviously as well. You've got last year's events there linked on the GitHub repo as well, which is pretty cool. So if anybody does want to go back through those sessions, I presume they're all still relatively live with the YouTube or blog posts, Dwayne. Yeah.
Yes, they should be. Generally, unless somebody's archived their blog site, or was a video that wasn't on my YouTube channel, and they've archived it, then otherwise they would all still be active. Yep.
No, and it's really good. So obviously part of, kicking off this conversation with you now, Dwayne, I felt it was such a great event. Like you say, I've seen both Gregor and Richard's, the festive tech calendar event they do in December. And like you say, the spring clean that the guys over in Ireland obviously set up around, it is around February, March time, I think usually, isn't it? That they do that. So, I mean, it's a great event, and it's great to see actually scanning down the names there that you can see from last year's event. It's great to see that so many of those people are still massively active across the community now. And I guess anybody watching this video, this is really like a one-stop shop to kind of go to find out, who's who in the community, I guess, from an Azure perspective. And
you want to follow some of the leaders on Twitter. That's pretty much a who's who list on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those links of everybody's name actually goes to their Twitter handle. So very easy to just select on there and follow them if you like.
No, absolutely. So, no, I mean, it's a really great event, and I'm looking forward to partaking myself this year. So, I know you got me down there for a day at some point in September, so I'm looking forward to getting that video sorted and obviously sent over to you fairly soon. But yeah, I mean, in terms of, if we flick back a second, Dwayne, over to the other view. So, I mean, in terms of community, and obviously, I've seen that you've been a hugely active part in the community over, certainly over the last year or so since I've been playing a bit more of paying a bit more attention. How do you find community yourself, Dwayne? What do you why do you do these things? What's if somebody new was coming into the industry or turning to community for the first time, would there be any words of wisdom or bits of advice that you'd want to give those people?
I don't know if it's words of advice, but in terms of bits of wisdom, just introduce yourself, I think is the biggest thing, because the one thing I've found about the Microsoft community and the community leaders of MVPs, whether you're an MVP or an MCT or you're not, they're all very welcoming. There's I think we're really check our egos at the door. I don't think I haven't run across anybody within the community that really has an ego or doesn't want to help everybody else. And that is one of the things that I love about just being part of the Microsoft community, because of that. They are so they're welcoming. If you're new to the community and you want to present or talk at a user group, they welcome you, and that's really what I want to do myself. I want to emulate that and be that myself, because I enjoy being around people that are like that provide, that are welcoming. They, I feel like I've gained more friends in the last 2 years in the UK than I've ever known, because and I've never been across the pond myself, and I feel I've got a lot of what I feel are somewhat close friends just virtually through through Twitter and LinkedIn and speaking at community events and all of that. And that's just because everybody's just so welcoming, and that just makes you want to do more for the community as well, just because of the welcoming nature of everybody within the cloud family.
Oh, never a true word spoken, Dwayne. I think I felt a lot of that myself, over the last year or so. We're getting involved, and I think I joke with people now when we finally at some point get back to face, sort of events, whether that be the big events over in the US like Ignite or whether it be localized. I pity the bar that's in within a mile radius of that event, because I think it's such a, like you say, it's such an inclusive, fun. At the end of the day, yes, it's like anything, I suppose. I really like that bit that you pick up about checking your ego at the door, because look, let's face it, in tech, it's probably safe to say there are a lot of egos floating about the place, and when you turn to community, I know certainly a lot of people that I've spoken with that are, either, when I was getting into community, I guess I spent a long time on the peripherals and kind of looking and observing and taking from the great blog post and the great video, and I never really engaged at that level of, where you become friends, where you can actually have a social chat with somebody, and you do consider people to be your friends. But it's so true that once you get involved, I don't think I've come across anybody, like you say, with that ego. It's such a fun thing, and what from the point of view of what it's meant to you personally, what have you got out of it personally, whether it be from, learning new things or networking? Have you got any bits of advice how that's affected you over this period of time?
I just think from a standpoint, especially with the pandemic and not being, when this all started, I was with a different company in an office with with people, and and just being part of the community and speaking in different events, you at least get some of that social interaction.
Cool.
And yeah, I do look forward to, hopefully, unfortunately, it doesn't look like this fall Ignite's going to be happening in person again either. But I do look forward to having a Guinness with a bunch of my UK friends here.
That bar better be pretty big. I think there'll be a lot of people kind of meeting up for that pint of Guinness.
It is really comes down to just having that social interaction. I've gotten a lot out of that. I've learned a lot from everybody too. From like I said, there are a lot of smart people, and can very easily sit at the periphery and get that that imposter syndrome a little bit, because there are so many sharp people. But the fact that there aren't egos, that I've come across in the community, they're willing to provide their knowledge and help you with their knowledge, and you can even if you're not in their user group, you can reach out, if you have a question about something, and something that's not outside of your realm of expertise, they're willing to provide their nugget of knowledge and information as well. So you gain a lot out of it and learn a lot just from taking it in, and and watching the videos and learning and being part of, even just attending the user groups like we were talking before. There's so many user groups that they're all virtual and they're all worldwide, that you learn things from different regions and geographies too, that you don't gain that particular knowledge necessarily in a non-virtual world as well. So I've gained a lot out of learning things from my counterparts in EMEA and the UK and all of that, and across the world, that are part of different events. It's been very helpful.
No, there's some great observations there, Dwayne. I think, like you say, when you say about there are a lot of sharp, intelligent people in the community, and it is very easy to kind of reel back from even trying to engage with people on that level, I guess, because of imposter syndrome, because I think everybody suffers with it. You stand by and watch somebody speaking or showing something, you think, my goodness, that's out of my league. And look, it happens to everybody, and I think that's such a clear thing to point out. And like you say, those people, in my experience as well, you reach out to them over Twitter or LinkedIn and say hello, and literally I've been so shocked how quickly people have got back to me, in this community, and it just seems to be just a way of being, and it's just so nice to see that actually it is so true. Don't be afraid to jump on in feet first and get involved. Because I think the enthusiasm for doing that, I think it's fair to say I did it. I jumped in feet first almost from watching on the peripherals for a while, and the amount of support I've had from other community members, just kind of helping each other up, I guess, just showing what everybody else is working on is such a, it's a funny cliched thing to say, but it's a genuine thing to say. It's like very fulfilling, it's very nice, where you've got that group of peers across the pond, in different areas. And like you say, that point around learning from other people across, different cultures and nations, it really does. If you've not kind of, turn to that kind of inclusive mentality, because I know, we're still battling with a lot of negativity across lots of areas in societies at the minute. But I think just literally turning to that inclusive, positive mindset and that growth mindset, the community absolutely helps you. I don't know what your experience has been like, Dwayne, but for me, it just helped you see the point of all of this,
Yes.
Because you get so much back, I guess, isn't it, for yourself?
Yeah, exactly. You hit on it really. Yeah, it gets you, the community and the cloud family gets you away from all of that political negativity that's all over the place.
Yeah.
And really at this point tiresome.
It is, but for the sake of keeping things positive, obviously, from the point of view of you're talking about these fantastic, clever, intelligent, brilliant people across the community. They got that knowledge somewhere, and most of the time they get that knowledge from some kind of training content and training providers like yourself, Dwayne. For me, can we switch tracks slightly and talk about that industry and what that's like? Because, a lot of the guests I've had on this show, we very much talked about keeping your skills up to date, in this such a fast pace of change society that we live in now with tech and, working towards that next accreditation or certification and what that means in the day job. But it's very much been, focused on, that kind of either design, delivery, administration kind of viewpoint of somebody using the technology in business. I've not actually spoken with anybody about what it's like working in that training industry for tech. So I don't know, can you give me a few insights, Dwayne? Let us know, how did you get into training and what it meant for you and what it means for you now?
Yeah. From a standpoint of how I got into training, I've always enjoyed being in roles where I could impart what I knew to others, meant whether it was mentoring somebody new to my team, or teaching new products and services. I spent many years as a product manager at a couple of different Microsoft CSPs in launching cloud services and things like that. So I've done a lot of that in the past, and launching those services and teaching people what I knew on that, as well as being, I was a solution engineer or an architect at one point prior to the cloud, installing client server networks and phone systems where I would architect and design those. And I always it was always about what I seemed to always enjoy the most was teaching others and talking to others about why we were doing things in technology and what the direction was. And a few years ago, I was working with a company that was getting to a point where I saw the fact that they were going to take another direction with their product and their marketing team. And I decided, I'm going to jump both feet in and get my certifications. And then from that, I started reading up on, what it took to be a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm like, this is probably a good idea, probably something nice to have, and I can, utilize this to teach more people around, Azure administration, Azure architecture, and all of that. And so I jumped into that. My thoughts were correct that my company wiped out our entire marketing department in one swoop after I'd been with the company for 13 years. And then they said, well, if you want to stay here, here's your severance package. We're going to have new jobs opening up in marketing next week if you want to apply for your position again, essentially.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll find somewhere else. Thank you. And caught on with another CSP And one of the things that they were very happy that I was an MCT, because they were just moving into public cloud. They were a private hosting company, moving into the public cloud, and they gave me the opportunity to start teaching and start training the cloud engineers and cloud architects on getting certified in Azure, and I really enjoyed it. And during that time, I started doing some on-demand content for Opsgility as well, just in my free time. And then they offered me a full-time position. So I felt, what I was enjoying most in my current job was doing that training, was those weeks that I was sitting in a training room and teaching these engineers, Azure administration or Azure security, and getting them certified. And so I got the opportunity to do that. And it was right on the front end of the pandemic. So they were shifting from being an in-person training facility completely. Opsgility would just go on site and into a virtual only training company. And which has been quite the challenge. As you know, there's a lot of inexpensive and free content out there on demand for getting certified. Some of the content's great. Some of it, is to me, nothing replaces having something live where you can interact with the person. And that's really, what I try to do when I provide a class is make it interactive and have fun with it. And it's a challenge with virtual training, and Opsgility was doing both at one time. We were doing the on-demand, and like you were saying, the pace of technology to try and keep on-demand content up to date is impossible. So, so we went fully to just live training at the beginning of this year, and that's what we do. We deliver mock courses to get people certified, but we also do custom courses if somebody wants some specific technology, or and we're getting a lot of companies that are looking to take it a little bit more custom, rather than just the canned mock content that Microsoft has to get trained, we want to learn about Microsoft security, but we really want to know how to administer devices with Intune and updates, so we'll develop content specific to that. And we have our own lab environment that we develop our own labs. So there's hands-on labs and hands-on working in a sandbox type environment. So they don't have to work in their own production environment. And we just close it out when we're done. And we build a lot of challenges that also avoid, take that a step further, rather than step-by-step labs, to make them think about how am I going to architect this, and what technologies do I actually need? So those are really fun. Especially, I love writing them. That's probably one of I've learned more in the last year around, I had my certifications, but I hadn't really, because I was a product manager, I wasn't an engineer. I've had a lot more hands-on around all of it in the last year, as I've been here doing actual training and developing labs. Has been really fun and fulfilling as well.
Well, do you know, I was going to ask you about that. Obviously, being a training provider and a trainer, for doing these kind of live sessions. I mean, firstly, it's really interesting to hear that, yourselves, you moved away from that, on-demand kind of training material, because, I think, for anybody that works, in the industry, not in a training role, even just keeping up to speed with that with customers is one thing. So, I mean, it's just really, insightful to hear that as training providers, you're recognizing that, hang on a second, it's probably a lot more, sort of amenable and easier to kind of just deliver that live hands-on training. But on that note, Dwayne, even for yourself as a trainer, what do you do to kind of keep up to speed? Because look, we all know we can go and study for exams and kind of go through the Microsoft Learn modules, get hands on ourselves in the portal. But I mean, how do you manage that? When you're delivering a new syllabus or a new piece of course material, how do you find that as a trainer? Are there any hints or tips or gaps or ways that you work, Dwayne?
Usually it is, before I teach a class, obviously if it's a Microsoft certified class, I generally have to be certified on it, so I have to go in and do my own work to
Yeah.
to get to that certification. One of the interesting things though was that with I teach a lot of the security classes, and when I first taught the SC200 class, which is very heavy in Azure Sentinel, I actually
Hmm.
taught the class before I had the certification because I had the AZ and the MS 500,
Sure.
which allow you to teach that class, which was really interesting. But I had to go in and really do the hands-on labs ahead of time, just because I hadn't worked with, especially like Python a whole lot. I don't hesitate to say I'm not a coder. I'm not a
Hmm.
developer from that standpoint. So so from a standpoint of coding languages, they're not always my cup of tea.
Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah.
Give me a little bit. You give me a little bit of guidance, and I can figure out, okay, here's where things are wrong and things like
Mm.
that potentially. But don't tell me to write a Python code. I'll need a template, please.
Yeah, no, I'm
but
with you. I'm with you, Dwayne. I think it's those
and
things that even those soft, well, I say soft skills, those other technical skills that kind of, we're in this world where everything seems to be meshing together, isn't it? So it's like, if you know a bit about
yeah.
everything, you're probably going to be able to do something. But no, so yeah, so obviously you're doing the same kind of prep that,
Oh
the
yeah.
average person might need to do, but then you're
Like
doing that for,
Microsoft Learn, and Microsoft Docs are a lifesaver.
yeah, no, no,
To
absolutely. And they
everybody. I
become,
mean, it just that's the first place I always go to if I'm trying to learn something within Azure or Microsoft 365 is I go to just docs.microsoft.com and start searching for their little tutorials and try and gain knowledge out of their step-by-step tutorials on, okay,
oh,
this is how this is done. That's so it is a constant learning process, as you said. And
hmm,
then when we do a custom class where a customer says, hey, I want you to take this class, but I want you to take it this direction, a step further here,
hmm,
then you'd have to sit down and really go through documentation, like I said, the
right.
community, finding things around containers and things like that.
Hmm.
I lean on some of those subject matter experts within the community as well.
Oh no, absolutely. I can imagine, and I guess it's just interesting to see because when you talk to people about how they stay on top of their tech skills, we've heard this thing that lots of people learn in different ways, and I think I myself am more of a, I think I probably fall into that visual learner myself. So working with somebody with a an instructor or a trainer and having that interaction is always a good thing for me. I mean, how do you find that with the classes you teach, Dwayne? Is do you see that there's a pattern of people that kind of respond to that instructor-led training more than just sitting there with a book and reading it out? Do you get a feel for those kind of things? You got any insights there?
It's interesting because I always laugh sometimes with our training. We get our surveys, the metrics that matter surveys. I read over every single one of them and really
Mm,
gauge myself and how I can improve by the comments that are within those surveys.
sure. Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because there seems to be a cycle in it where if we're doing a hands-on lab that and we're just allowing, okay, here, go do this lab, we'll be back in 30 minutes.
Hmm.
Or if I go and say, okay, I'm going to do this lab, I'm going to step through it with you, go ahead and follow along with me. I get people that complain one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
strange that somebody will be like, yeah, he stepped through the labs, which made it go too slow. I would just rather just do it on my own. And then
Right.
others that'll say, like, I wish the instructor went through the labs a little bit. So now what I do
Yeah.
is when I do a class and I get to a lab, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to go through this lab with you. If you are comfortable enough to do this on your own, feel free to to go offline and do it on your own. And then if you finish before I'm done, go take a break. But I'm going to stay on this for those of you that need me and
Yeah.
would like to ask questions as you go through.
Mm.
I'm going to step through this lab for you, and it tends to that tends to work because it gets the best of both worlds in that standpoint. And
Yeah.
but it is a challenge, and I do always have somebody that comments every virtual class that I do that say, I wish this was in person. There's still a lot of
Yeah.
people that
Okay.
just wish that if they were taking a training class, that they were taking it in person, because they still feel that they're watching a video, watching me like this, to a degree,
That's a strange one, isn't it? I think it's probably safe to say we're all probably virtually burnt out. Certainly over the last 18 months. So,
Yeah.
I reminisce back to the times when I had my first Microsoft in-person training, and that was a good few years back now, where you all met up and you sat in the room and you had the instructor and you went through the big blue Microsoft books from cover to cover, doing all the exercises. It was good fun, and I look back now and I think, Would or does that work today with that rate of change? And how often do people need to, do we go on training courses now to get that, aim for that certification? And then, it's almost like once you've got the certification, in Microsoft eyes, you renew every year now through the new renewal mechanism that Microsoft have put in place. How does that work for a training provider, Dwayne, in terms of, do you encourage, do you offer, I guess you're going to offer services for people to come back and do refresher courses if it's necessary. But do you tend to see lots of the same company covering lots of the Microsoft syllabus? I suppose, let me rephrase that. So I feel what I see at the moment from my own personal perspective is, we're all expected. The expectation is to know a lot more than possibly we're used to traditionally. Is that probably a fair way to say it? So, yeah. In terms of when companies engage you guys as a training provider, do you see that companies are very much segmenting their staff into specific roles, like the Azure certification roles, or do you see the same people turning up doing multiple, quite broad range of certs? Because you see lots of people, and I myself, I've done a very broad range of certification, and do I use every bit of that on a day-to-day basis? No. So by the time I come to use it, odds are I've done the certificate, year 2, 3 years ago, but my knowledge needs to be refreshed. What do the training providers see around that?
It depends. It depends depending on how really around the company structure, because we do a lot for different Microsoft partners, and I will see, and like I said, I generally teach on the security and infrastructure type track, and probably more so security than others. We have other guys on our staff that do more of the administrator and architect. Just being the lead, I have other responsibilities, but I like teaching the security classes. And I've had the same people multiple times in different security classes. So I've seen that, but I've also seen with other organizations where I've seen people kind of cross over, where I've had somebody in a administrator class, and then they've been like in the AZ 500 class as well for security. So it depends on the organization. I've seen organizations where I've had a security class, and it's been the entire security team. It hasn't really crossed over into other groups, and things like that. But I've had some others where I've had, we did a custom Intune course, and we had people that were from like just standard engineering, and then from the workplace group, and they kind of crossed groups a little bit, just to kind of give a little bit of cross training of how to work it as well. So it depends on the organization, the organizational culture, in terms of how siloed they might be, or how broad, and it's an interesting dynamic, because I tend to, like you said, think when you think about cloud and you think about Azure and Microsoft 365, they all blend together in some aspect, and having different knowledge around different disciplines is definitely beneficial. But I also see that there's some organizations, probably some of those older, like I had said, those more siloed companies that were more traditional, like private hosting companies that have like their networking groups and their identity groups and their security groups and their their engineers. They're much more siloed and haven't meshed, haven't quite gotten to that point where the responsibilities are meshing the way they probably should for the public cloud services.
Yeah, it's just an observation. Obviously, over the years, you see it, don't you? You see these overlapping and grey areas in terms of duties. Does that fall into a traditional kind of infrastructure role, or am I expected to know a
Mhm.
bit more about security? Certainly the security. I've always kind of semi joked with customers for a number of years now that Microsoft have, kind of forced us all to become pseudo security experts to a certain extent, because it's baked into everything. Everything you touch has got an
Yeah.
element of security. Which, look, hey, we get it. It's just an interesting concept to see how that kind of portrays through to training providers, and what other big companies or other companies are kind of making of it. So, I mean, that's cool. It's great insights, to be honest, Dwayne. I mean, it's been cool. I mean, we've covered obviously the Azure Back to School, the great efforts that you're putting in with that, and the great community content that's coming out now as this video's been watched. If you're watching, go and head over to that. Obviously, then we've covered community, your aspects on community, and then we've touched upon what you've been up to in the world of training, which has been, some super great insights there, Dwayne. There's always one nice big open-ended question I like to ask guests on this show is, why are we doing all this, Dwayne? What's next? Where are we going? So from your point of view, Dwayne, what do you see as being, the next big bet in technology? Where are we all going to be working in the next 5 to 10 years, do you think?
It like you said, it's like Microsoft's forcing everybody to be security people. I see security being a big thing. Something that I seem to talk about so much in even just security classes is AI and machine learning.
Mm,
And just the aspect of that and how integrated even some of that's getting into like Azure Sentinel and Security Center and
mm,
and all of those security technologies. I seem to almost talk about AI and machine learning around those technologies more so than I do in terms of security operations and investigating
yeah,
type things. So I think that's a cool direction to head in, and to learn about. It's something that when I teach an AI class, whether it's AI fundamentals or the AI engineering class, um, that class is it's somewhat easy to teach because it's relatable to everybody, right? We all
mm,
we all have some sort of AI conversationalist within our our own
yeah,
house,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That we're utilizing. So I see that as a big thing. Obviously, data and IoT is something that I haven't, from an IoT perspective, haven't quite grasped that and worked with that myself a whole lot because there's a lot of developer knowledge that needs to go into that. But like I said,
yeah,
I think
sure.
I think I think I think just the way Microsoft's tying the AI and the machine learning into everything,
Mm,
it just seems like that's a good path to start understanding and learning about, and how that ties into infrastructure automation and security automation and all of that. It all ties into that whole machine learning graph that Microsoft has on the back end of just about everything right now. So and like I said, it's a fun thing to talk about.
Oh no, I echo those thoughts. I think it's really cool actually you saying that, and obviously what you see, certainly with Sentinel and some of the AI kind of, the ways that it can detect threats and spot patterns in terms of, all the
Yeah.
feeds and metric that Sentinel is collecting from various sources. But I was speaking with Neil McLaughlin, and I asked him this very same question,
Mhm.
and his answer was almost verbatim what you just said. But obviously, from an AVD perspective, it'll be cool when machine learning and AI is built in, so that now provisioning desktops for users is all driven
Right.
from an A. And it's great to see that you start to see, asking around the industry and the community that these kind of patterns still seem to be the case. That everybody seems to be looking towards that AI ML as the place to be, and yeah, IoT, get into it, Dwayne, is such a fun area. I mean, that's certainly an area I've been dabbling with. If you haven't spotted across the
Yes, I
socials,
have seen. I've seen
it's
some of that.
it
Yes.
it's and again, back to the point around community. There's some absolutely superb people across the community in that space as well. But Dwayne, this has been a super fun chat. Really, really can't thank you enough for coming on and saying hello to me and having this chat. I mean, before we call it, are there any other little words of wisdom you'd like to drop in? Obviously, don't forget now to go and get
Yeah.
onto the Azure Back to School.
Azure Back to School.tech. Keep on it every day. One or two different contributors will be on there. So follow on social media. I'll have the hashtag Azure Back to School running throughout the month. So yeah, looking forward to that. And feel free to reach out to me at any time if you are thinking about getting certified and what path you want to head on. I'd love to talk to people and mentor people down their path to certification. As the background says, proud to be certified.
Proud to be certified indeed. Dwayne, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for giving up your time and recording this session with me.
Thank you.
We'll call it there. Super fun chat. Like I say, we'll probably catch up over the socials at some point now over the coming weeks, and obviously I look forward to seeing all the other content come out on the back to school event. So for now, thank you so much, sir. I'll catch up with you soon.
All right. Thank you very much, John. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Dwayne. Speak to you soon.